7659.
You are listening to Get Down to Business, the show that is all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We're talking with Mark Goodman, the president and CEO of eConversation Solutions, the folks that brings your expertise alive. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Shalom.
Of course. So, Mark, you work with a lot of businesses, big and small. Tell us a little bit about the selling process.
Okay. So I think that businesses need to understand the selling process to make themselves really efficient. The selling process, as we look at it, is divided into 4 steps: awareness, education, consideration, overcoming objections, and closing the sale. And especially what I do is I work with companies to help them integrate the internet into their selling process.
So it's no longer old school marketing, placing an ad in the Tribune. It's you've got to be a little bit more innovative these days, huh?
Well, I think the challenge that you have is aligning the appropriate content to the stage that your prospect or your customers in the selling process. You know, you think about that you really don't want to give a quote to a customer the first time you meet them. But, you know, sometimes that first meeting is a get-to-know-you meeting. If you use the internet effectively, maybe you can turn that first meeting into a consideration and overcoming objection meetings and potentially eliminating a sales call.
So, Mark, do you believe that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to marketing? Is there one thing that you can do, or do you need to understand the industry first?
Well, I think what you really need to do is understand your customer first and think about, you know, where's your customer coming from and what do they need and, you know, what problem do they have?
That's great. And how can companies best integrate social media, especially videos, into that selling process, regardless of who their customer is?
So when you develop a piece of content, you really need to think about where in the selling process is this piece of content being used. It used to be, especially video, people put together stories. You know, the old Morley Safer 60 minutes, 10, 12-minute interview that had a beginning and then a climax and then an end. But if I sent you a link to a 12-minute video, Shalom, what would you do?
Well, I would probably not watch it very long because my attention span is not 12 minutes.
So the key thing you have to do when you're creating content is create little bits of content that are aligned to where that customer is in the selling process. If that customer has never met you before, maybe you send them a link to a getting to know you piece. On the other hand, if that customer comes from a referral or a testimonial, maybe it's education or it's a real product demo because they're really ready to learn more.
So give us an example. I know you work with a lot of companies. We're obviously here in Elk Grove Village, but you work with a lot of companies in Illinois and around the Chicagoland area. Tell us an example of how a company can sort of introduce and answer the questions that a prospective customer might have in bite-sized pieces.
So what you might want to do is think about creating a video that talks a little bit about who you are. So maybe before that first meeting, you know, you send them the link. You know, we've all sat and waited for a prospect in a coffee shop we've never met before. So let me ask you a question, Shalom. You're sitting in this coffee shop. You've never met this person before. They've never met you before. What's your number one concern?
Well, I want to make sure that they're credible, that you know who they are. I want to find out about their experience. I want to find out who they work with.
Right. Now, your number one concern is that they know who you are.
Sure.
Because you're sitting in their coffee shop and never met me before.
Oh, okay. The basic introduction. Yeah.
Okay. So ahead of time, you send them a little video that says who you are, that introduces what you do and maybe how you solve people's problems. So instantly you've changed that first meeting from a getting to know you meeting to a let's get down to business meeting.
So is it introducing me as a person or me as a company?
If you think about it, it's an interesting question. There's only really 2 reasons somebody buys from you. 1, you have the expertise to solve their problem. But 2, they like you.
Mm-hmm.
So that first video, you have to judge is, do you send them the like me video? Do you send the showcasing their expertise and you can solve their problem? But what I would do is I would actually create 2 little pieces. 1, a little bit getting to know you, a little bit of an expertise, and then maybe have a couple other videos that are like testimonials. Testimonials sit in the consideration phase of the selling process because nobody looks at a testimonial until they're pretty much ready to buy.
We're talking with Mark Goodman, who is telling us a little bit about the selling process. And you could call us with your questions at 312-642-5600. We're taking your questions about the selling process. Mark, are you a fan of putting videos in your signature line of your email?
Well, I think that the signature line of an email is one of the least utilized, most effective ways of communicating with your customers. And think about that you've gotten a referral. So think about the question that somebody would ask you right after a referral, maybe to showcase your expertise. So what you want to do is put a showcasing expertise link into your email, because if you're sending somebody an email, they kind of already know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not at the awareness stage of the selling process because they know who you are because you're sending them an email. So what you want to put in your email signature is a let me explain my expertise video link.
So it sounds like you're a big fan of video. I would agree, by the way, as well. But what might be a different way to look at the ROI, the return on investment, when it comes to using video?
So typically, people think about links, they think about hits, they think about just trying to look at internet activity. But what I'd like to think about is, can you use that video to replace a sales call? The average sales call, they estimate, costs between $300 and $2,000. Now, if you can use a video to change that first meeting from a getting to know you meeting to a overcoming objections meeting, you have essentially saved yourself $300 to $2,000.
Mark, if I had a choice between putting out 3 or 4 quickly produced videos, maybe with a little flip camera, or taking the time and actually doing one quality video, meaning professionally edited, may cost a few bucks more, which option would you pick?
Well, let me say this, is clearly first impressions are lasting, so you need to think about how you're coming across. The challenge with the internet really asks for authenticity. I had a prospect, and he was saying to me, you want to do some videos, and he wanted to hire a pretty girl to do his videos. And I said to him, when you're going out to close a big deal, do you send a pretty girl? Thought about it and said, okay, authenticity. On the other hand, you as the viewer would like perfection. So the goal that we always have in creating content is what I would call authentic perfection. Now, as far as do you use a flip cam, do you use a professional, I think that first you need to see what's acceptable in your industry. And I think the second thing is when you do something that is somewhat amateurish, make sure that you put it in a setting so that I, as the viewer, understand this is what it is.
That's helpful. We're talking with Mark Goodman, who's got a lot of great advice about video. Mark, we're slowly running out of time. What should a small business do to get started on YouTube or any other social media?
I think the first thing you should do is not spend any money, but go and subscribe to YouTube. Look at the kinds of things you like, the kinds of video that your competitors are using, and maybe even if you have a complimentary expert, you can even use third-party content and see how does it like. Interesting, Shalom, that your customers and prospects tend to like what you like. So before you spend any money on production, sign up, subscribe, find the things you like, and then put together a plan to move forward in your business.
Fantastic advice from Mark Goodman of eConversation Solutions. Great advice about videos, social media, and, of course, marketing in general. Mark, if people want to learn more, how can people get a hold of you?
Okay, so they can certainly visit my website, www.e-conversation.com, my YouTube channel, which is eConversation, or give me a call on 847-875-8905.
Very, very helpful. Mark Goodman of eConversation Solutions. Thanks for joining us on Get Down to Business. Get Down to Business is powered by Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them at tandemhr.com or call 630-928-0510. That phone number, once again, is 630-928-0510. You can also email them, simplify at tandemhr.com. And after the break, we're going to be talking with Daniel Burns of Deep Blue Data. We're going to be talking a little bit more about technology, a conversation that every small business owner needs to have about how to protect their data, how to protect their identity. We've heard so many stories about that. Once again, we're going to be talking with Daniel Burns of Deep Blue Data. You won't want to miss a minute of it. You're listening to the show that's all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. You're listening to Get Down to Business. Get on my website, shalomklein.com. You can find out who's going to be on next week on the show that's all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship.
So the Republicans are